and cut. Hello, thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Lara Andrake. I'm currently the Chief of Shared Services, Risk Management and Analytics at the County of Albemarle. I'm also on the Charlottesville SHRM board. I'm the secretary in that role, and I get to serve the Charlottesville Human Resources community by providing information like this to folks that may not necessarily have HR in their title, but do carry out those HR functions. So this conversation today is about employee engagement and how this matters to you. The tagline was, it's more than pizzas and picnics, and it's so much more. It's about the people, and so that's really the heart of any organization is the people. And so how you engage with them, how you value them, and how they come away with a perception of being valued really does matter. No more are the days of be lucky you have a job. I mean, I think we're well past that, and feel grateful for that. Yes, of course, people need to be employed to take care of obligations, but they also want to feel valued. They want to contribute. They want to be aligned with the mission and the vision of the organization. And if they're not, they're going to seek out an organization that they can align with to put their energy and effort and talent towards. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. And then just a little bit about me. I have about 20 years experience in human resources. I am certified in human resources. I have the SHRM CP certification. And the scope of work in human resources spans from recruitment all the way to the hard part, which is inviting people to work elsewhere. And so I've done that in that capacity in several organizations, and so large and small, local and not so local. So I'm going to try real hard not to name names and tell tales. I'm just going to do one or the other. So at this point, I'd like to protect everybody's identity and just make sure that we get the core concept of what we're trying to do here. And so we'll start with why this matters. Does this matter to me or to my organization? So does it really matter? What do you guys think? Does the employee engagement really matter? Do you feel like your engagement in your organization helps you be more productive?
Yeah,
So how do you mind sharing how you feel valued in your organization? What are some things you feel like your organization does to make you feel valued?
I guess when they come and ask your opinion about it, there's like an issue going on with a couple of other employees, and they come and say, okay, by you being the director of sales, how do you think we should handle this? What's the best way to go about it? Because sometimes some bosses forget that the employees, they're human beings, and you can't just talk to them any old way that you want. That you've got to treat them with the same respect and common courtesy of how you wish to be treated. Because I know sometimes I've got to remind my boss that. Because you're going to get a lot of resistance if you don't show them some kind of respect. They know you're their boss, but they still deserve respect. And they have a tendency to forget that. So, when they do come to me, I say, well, thank you for coming and asking for my opinion, because they know I do have HR in my blood. I'll give them a look like, you're crossing the line. Or I'll go, one of those, and they know like, oh.
So how would we ask your supervisor? How did they engage with you? Do you think your opinion of how somebody engages with you is the same as what they think they're doing? So is your perception of what they think they're doing the same as what they're trying to deliver? And so what I mean by that is often our intention has a very different result of what we're doing. So inviting somebody to share and collaborate on a project for you shows that you're valued and your opinion matters and that you're part of the team. So if someone assumed that you were too busy and didn't ask you, do you feel like that assumption would hinder you feeling valued?
If it would,
Okay.
especially if it's a project that I need to be made aware of,
Mm-hmm.
or if I need to play a part of it.
Okay. All right.
But sometimes our jobs crosses,
Mhm.
over each other.
There's no more just one lane. It's all,
Exactly.
It's all collaboration.
It's all collaboration, exactly.
Anybody else want to share how you feel valued at either your current employer or an unnamed employer that you'd like to share? How have you been valued?
I felt valued at times when there was some evidence that my voice was heard
Mm-hmm.
in many ways, like many different ways. So, and I've seen it for other employees too, being in HR. I've had it done for me personally when I was newer, early career. I spoke up about something. My supervisor, the HR director, heard it,
Mm-hmm.
took action, and it was resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way that I felt like really made reparations and was satisfactory, and it really made me feel like she valued me enough to, bring this up to her, her peers, and they all met with me, and it came to like a really great resolution. And then on the flip side, I've seen employees ask for things or question policies and make requests, and within reason, we were able to accommodate,
Mm-hmm.
advocate for these staff members, and they really, really appreciated it. And so seeing that, and then also having that personal experience myself, really made me feel valued. And I'm thinking the other employees have felt valued in that way too. So like through advocacy and actions that show our voices are heard.
You bring up a really good point. But I would ask you if you also felt valued if there was something that you requested or suggested that was not remedied in a way that you thought it should be. So that's also the flip side of the coin, is to make sure that when somebody comes to you and they need to be heard, you hear them, and then also if you're not able to accommodate, that you're able to explain at least a little bit of why, and not necessarily a hard no. We want to get people to yes, right? And so that's something that my supervisor has said, is we don't want to be the department of no.
Right.
We want to be, how can we help you get there, or not yet. And so there's a lot of value in that. And so the collaboration in getting people to yes, there's sometimes there's policies that prohibit things. Sometimes there's rules or other things that are going on in the background that you just don't necessarily know about. So, anybody else want to share?
So I've only been in this position for a few months, but I do feel, so I don't have any like specific engagement things, but I do feel like that is the culture. So, within my department, we have daily huddles, and then we meet one-on-one once a week. And then the city has meetings with all the departments and all the employees. So what I like about that is they communicate. So whatever's going on, like they're telling us about the parking garage before the parking garage happens, and all this stuff, so that you're not kind of blindsided or look ignorant when someone knows that you work for the city and you don't even know what's going on, or they want to ask, who do I talk to about this, and you're not sure. So I think they do a really good job of communicating, and then giving us the opportunity to say, do you have questions or anything we should know about? You guys are boots on the ground, so I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. And then, like, even with this position, they include us in the interviewing process, so we get to kind of have a say as to whether we think they'd be a good fit, or so yeah, I feel like they give us opportunities to be included in those big decisions. But I have worked for an organization that I've never felt less engaged, and it was a really complete 360 where, like you said, I tried to bring up an issue and it was just like, nope, don't want to hear it. That's our policy. If you want to come and talk, you can, but we've made the decision. So like basically,
It's,
if you want to go through the motion of letting, we can, but it's not gonna change. As long as and if you still wanna meet, we can. Like, well, I will meet with you if
well,
yeah. So,
well, great.
I've been on both sides.
So you sought an opportunity that you felt engaged in. So we're gonna dig more into that. Would you like to share one or?
Oh, sure. I experienced recently where I felt valued and appreciated when my supervisor said something appreciative about my work in front of other people. And it's funny because I get embarrassed, like I don't like to all that in front of people, but it felt really sincere, you know, to know that she's not just saying it to me to make me feel better, but saying it to somebody else because that's really how she feels.
So let's talk about another reason why this matters, the economic reason why this matters. So let's talk about some statistics. So I can't show up claiming to be a finance person without a little bit of statistics, a little bit of finance, a little bit. We'll get back to the HR fun stuff. But in January 2023, the unemployment rate in this area right here where we are sitting was 2.9%. And so what that means is that if someone wants a new job, it is a seeker's market, and so they can find a new job. And while that's something that we're very excited about, and obviously there's the economic considerations that are going on with inflation and other factors, but right now currently the unemployment rate in this area is such that if you want to seek other employment, that is absolutely an option available. And so another thing to consider, and this isn't a scare tactic or a fear mongering situation, it's just reality of how much does a new hire cost you? And so if someone decides that they're going to leave, what does that really cost you? And so current documentation that I saw was 1.5 to 2 times the annual salary of that person, but that's just the financial cost. That's not the lost productivity, the institutional knowledge, the overburdening of the remaining staff, the important work left undone. And so there is a cost to that. It's probably a hidden cost, but it does play into the culture. And so if you have a situation where there's always a vacancy, somebody's doing that work, or the work's not being done, and you have to determine as an employer and as an HR professional or a contributor to the HR function what that really means and how that's impacting your team. So now we have a little bit of tales from an HR professional. And so this is where we're going to not name names, but we're going to talk about some case study kind of facts that I was involved in. And so what I'd like to share is, here are the facts. 50% turnover rate in the past 2 years. So when I walked into this organization, there was a new leadership, a new direction, and 25% of the remaining staff were near retirement. The organization was undergoing a transformation, and there were knowledge gaps. Teams worked in silos. So what do? You walk in and you have to have work done. Pretty much everybody's either really new or really fed up. So, either really new or really fed up. So what you do, and so several organizations that I've worked at, actually I've gone in. This actually could be applied to about 3 of my previous employers. So there's not really a way to determine who this is, but this is not an uncommon phenomenon. And so what we did was we decided to talk to people. The first thing that I heard when I asked, how do you feel engaged and valued, is somebody said, my voice is being heard. Somebody said, not being blindsided about what's going on. Somebody said, I want to know what's going on and to be involved in the hiring process and interviews. These are not ground shaking, revolutionary kinds of things, but in the work world they kind of are for some cultures. And so what we did was we started with a hard conversation about the current state of the organization itself. And so I'm going to say organization. This could be a department. This could be a small business. This could be a volunteer group, what have you. And so we had to build a team. We did not have a team. We had employees who worked there and did their very best, but they weren't necessarily a team. And so what we did was we interviewed every single employee that worked in that group. I interviewed every single person. And I had an explicit set of questions that I asked them. I'm going to tell you, these were, one of the tactics were called Tell Me More, and they were essentially stay interviews. And so the way stay interviews work is not when the person comes to you and says, I've accepted a new role, my resignation, please, here you go. The stay interview is really when you know that a person has checked out. And you know that they're probably occupied with other things. It could be whatever their thing is. But I created a list of every questions to ask every single employee. I scheduled an hour meeting with everybody. I got leadership's approval to be able to spend this time, because this is a lot of time. This is, there was about 100 people that we're talking about. So it's at least 100 hours, and then I had another, 10 to 15 hours of analysis of the results. And so it was a big effort. And so it was an investment in the employee engagement is what it was. Listen to the responses, and when they said something, I'd say, tell me more. This is not rocket science. It is engagement. Mm-hmm. Tell me more. Tell me about that. What do you mean by that? And so when you're in a technical environment and somebody says, the Who's-He Watch It RP 749 form, or whatever the technical jargon is for that group, what does that really mean? What does that look like? What does it take to, what are the pieces of information that feed into that? Where are the stop gaps? Where are you missing some information? Well, Susie retired 2 years ago and I haven't been able to get that report since. Okay, well, let's find out what you need and get that built. And so there were some real tactical things that happened that kind of encouraged people. But some of the things that were said were, they were retiring soon, didn't feel like they had anything more to offer. I'm out. And they were honest about it. And so that's okay. You can be honest about where you are. And that probably is the best thing that could have happened. Newer staff didn't see a path forward for career growth. All they could see was the person in the next level up. And they're like, well, my boss's job is really the only job left for me. And they didn't understand how to transfer their skills into another kind of industry or another kind of focus, discipline. Most of the staff didn't know how the work impacted the department, their group, their office, their organization. They had no idea. All they knew is that I take care of this piece and this is my lane and I don't really know where it goes after this. And so connecting how they were part of the larger mission of the organization. How if you don't do this thing, Sally, I'm just saying Sally because Sally sounds like a great name. If you don't do this thing, we ultimately can't have, a new road built in the next county over, or whatever the thing is. We can't hire people. We can't house people. We can't do our business. We can't keep the doors open if you don't do this thing. And they had no idea how their work, either the information and the process before their work or the process after their work, was connected at all. And so we helped to educate them on just internal functioning. Some were happy in their role and wanted to deepen the knowledge area. They didn't want to be a supervisor. They didn't want to grow as far as title. They didn't want more responsibility. They just wanted to keep doing what they were doing because they were good at it. And they really wanted to just become better at their thing. And then some people were skeptical that the interviews would even help, or what are you trying to do? Are you? So what is this all about? I'm going to tell you nothing And I will spend an hour with you and smile and nod and tell you everything I think you want to hear. And that was okay too. So however they wanted to spend their hour, if they answered the question, if they danced around them, whatever they wanted to do. Some of the questions, I'll share with you some of the questions were, tell me about your job. What do you do? Who do you interact with every day? What kind of reports do you need to run from the system? What reports or what information you get from other people? Walk me through what a regular day looks like. Walk me through what a hard day looks like. What gives you the most trouble in this job? And what's the easiest thing you could think of that you're doing? And as they would answer, we would dig into whatever sounded a little strained. And so that's kind of how those conversations went. People want to be heard. You just have to listen. And so listening doesn't necessarily mean that you do exactly what everybody wants to do. Because we had some people that wanted streets of gold and halos around. And then we had some people that really all they wanted to work with was to continue to work from home once a week. And that was doable. That was something we could do. I will say it's important to know that these conversations and conversations like this, sometimes people realize that they don't really have a tie with the mission or the vision, and they decide that their life choices need to change, and that's okay too. So it was really it was a good exercise, and this organization continued that on year after year to have those conversations, and so they would happen not during the annual review process, but like maybe 6 months before that, just to kind of get a check-in so that the annual reviews aren't surprises. And then also there's demonstrated growth available from these conversations. So there was a metric of, there was employee engagement surveys and how do you think this is going? Have you seen improvement so far? And there was a lot of really good responses from that. But you have to keep in mind as an HR person, we're never going to make everybody happy. Never ever. But we can help people go after their passion, and we can help reinvigorate their passion for what they're doing. Because people, you're spending 40 plus hours a week doing work. You have to be engaged with it, or it'll either burn you out or you'll just be checking a box, and that's not going to be helpful for anybody. We're in a very new place in society of thoughtfulness and mindfulness and being tied to the mission, not only with your as your employer, but also you want to be able to be proud of that and be able to represent that organization well. So that's what we did. That's one of the case studies that we did. So let's see. You can do this. You can make it better. Whatever it is. If it's great, if it's already heaven, if you're in your honeymoon phase of your new job, or if you've been there for a couple of years and you want to kind of just get a refreshing, you can improve the organizational culture as an HR person and as a manager and as just a regular contributor to the organization. It will take some time and some focused energy, and the commitment is required from all levels of leadership. And so you can't change the culture without some support from the top. And it has to be genuine. It can't be just, well, we're going to be having a great smiley face and then everybody's kind of dying inside. That's not going to help. Everybody has to really be engaged. So what do we do now? Is this helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Taking
So
2 pages of notes.
Yeah, I'm like, noted.
So these kind of things. So I do have some action items for you to take away with you. Ask yourself, do you feel valued by your organization? Do you? And if you don't, what's it going to take to get there? Usually it's not a raise. Usually it has nothing to do with money. Usually it has to do with attitude, commitment, integrity. It has to do with being heard and making sure that you're comfortable with sharing your voice. Usually. Do you feel valued and acknowledged by your manager or your supervisor? Do they know who you are? I mean, do they know who you are, or do they know who the work you is? And are they two different people? If they're two different people, you need to figure out why. It's never good to be duplicitous. Okay, do you have a sense of belonging? Do you know the mission? Do you know the vision? Do you know the organizational stance on items of importance to you? Do you know your core values? And do they align with the core values of the organization? Are you part of a high-performing, trusting, open, caring team with teammates that you actually like to work with? Ouch. Sometimes I'm not real easy to work with, you know, so you have to be a little self-reflection there. So are you easy to work with? And sometimes on a day, no, but you know, that's okay. Do you have potential for meaningful advancement in a career? So meaningful advancement does not necessarily mean a promotion. It means advancement in knowledge and depth of understanding and even more contribution to the cause. And then do you have flexibility and autonomy in your workspace? And so can you say with certainty, like, you know, if you want to bring a plant, are you sure that plant's going to make it?
My desk, no.
No? Okay. Well, you know, sometimes that's why we have beautiful fake flowers.
Yeah.
But do you have flexibility? Do you feel constrained, like you kind of like seize up and you're like, oh, or do you have flexibility where you're like, yeah, I need a minute, I need to take a day off? Do you feel like you can take a day off and it not be a big deal? That's important. As an employer, your employees need to be empowered to be able to take a day off and it not be a big deal. There needs to be some kind of backup plan. There needs to, you know, because we don't want people to feel pressure if, you know, obviously mental health, there's a lot of, you know, taking a day off sometimes just helps people recharge, you know, and they don't have to have a reason. They don't have to tell you the reason. But they do need to be able to know that it's not going to be, the place isn't going to fall apart if they take a day off. And they don't need to feel that pressure. Additionally, do you take a day off as their manager or as their leader? Do you trust them to run the place without you? And so what's the level of trust? So those are some things to think about. Those are your action items